to leave the meeting or got it. I'll just stay.
All right. So let me see if there's any. No. Okay. All right. We are here with Cesario Ramos.
Hello.
How are you, Cesario?
I'm good, thank you.
We are here to talk about your brand new book, which is called Designing Agile Organizations, a Systemic Approach.
Yes, it was released early September, and we worked on it for 3 years, me and Ilya, and we're happy that it's done.
I didn't receive the book yet. I ordered it today, so I hope it's going to be here tomorrow. But
Okay.
I read the last one you wrote, Emergent, which was very interesting about how you can allow an organization emerge, about the improvements and the evolution of the company, about emerging from the people, like the changes emerging from the people, which was very radical approach in change management, or at least for me, it was radical in what I've seen regarding change management. I wonder what will be the ideal public of this new book, Designing Agile Organizations.
That's a very good question. I think there are two main readers for the book. I think primarily the book is for management people, senior managers, people in a position who have the authority to make changes to the design of an organization. I just call them managers because usually they are people in management positions who can do that. So this book offers to them ideas and guides about how to design their organization, so their structure, their policies, responsibilities, roles, in such a way that their organization becomes more adaptable. So that's the primary, one of the primary audiences for the book. And the other audience for the book is people who are in a change position, in a coaching position, in a position of actually running, executing the transformation or improving existing organizations. And for them, this book offers a lot of practical tips, practical guides, example workshop formats, next to, of course, the organization design guides that we mentioned for the senior management people. So these are the two basic ones that can benefit from the book.
And what do you think is triggering the need for change to adaptability in these managers? What will be the trigger for them to say, well, actually, I need to really change the design of my organization, and actually I don't know how to do it, so let's figure out with this book.
So the trigger would be that the current improvements, the current way of working, maybe the last improvement attempts that were tried out over the last 2 years or 3 years, they don't give you the improvements that you were expecting, or otherwise stated, the organization doesn't show the capabilities that senior management thinks are required to execute their strategy. So they say, well, we want to be a company like this. We want to have customers like that. And we want to have people who understand the customer. Maybe we want to have all these capabilities. There can be many. And we believe that these capabilities are required to be successful, but we don't have them. And we are having a hard time creating them within the organization. So in this book, we assume that these capabilities are that are in line with becoming an adaptable organization. So if your senior management comes to the conclusion that we need capabilities to be adaptable, but we don't have them and we are having a hard time creating them, then that would be the trigger to say, well, I have to do something about that. And one of the options is to have a look at my current organization design and see if it is in line with creating these capabilities which I'm missing currently. So that would be a trigger. Yeah.
And what is that you think these people will have in hand after eventually reading the book and doing the training, which I also joined a few of your trainings, and is very fun and very interactive, and is the learning process in my experience was about realizations, not about you sharing information, but was about, oh, now I see the light. No, it was a constant awareness of situations, and then you alone you are arriving to the conclusions by yourself. So, what do you expect these people after going through this process have in hand? Like, well, now I have the clarity about how to drive the change. Now I know how to do it. What is the state of this person at the end of the training, designing agile organizations?
Ah, okay. At the end of the training, okay. I was thinking you were asking about at the end of the book, but
Yeah,
at
I
the
would
end of
say
the
that
class. Yeah.
both.
So I think so. This 2-day class, it's the Designing Agile Organizations class. I think there are two main takeaways. I think that are important. One is that we believe that to be successful in this type of environment, to change successfully, the approach must be what we call systemic. Well, what does that mean? This means that the people who are part of your group, or part of your product group, part of your department, part of your organization, they must understand uh, how they themselves contribute uh, to the current situation. So despite their actions that actually promote performance of their organization, they also do actions that actually undermine the performance of their organization. This is a key concept in systems, in this systems approach. So at the end of the course, people will understand that how they actually not only support goals, but also undermine the same goals by their own actions. And they will understand that that's important to also achieve in their own organization, so that people understand why things happen in their organization and how they themselves contribute to the problems, let's say, the challenges that they see. And once they do that, once you come to that situation, then the people can be ready to take responsibility for the performance of the larger group of which they are a part, instead of only feeling the responsibility for a smaller, narrower part of their work. Maybe they work in a team and then they feel responsible for the team. But if you want to be adaptable at the large scale, at the organization scale, this is not sufficient. So the systemic approach will help the people become aware, and therefore also be able to take responsibility for the performance of the larger whole, by understanding how they contribute and undermine the performance of their own system. So that would be one of the key outcomes of following this course, that you yourself now understand a little bit of that, but you also now have some tools about how to create that understanding in your own organization with the people with whom you work. And then the second goal of the course would be that you would have a understanding of options. We call them guides, organization design guides, that you can apply in your own organization to improve it in such a way that you can then become a more adaptable organization. So those are basically the two things you can get from the 2-day course.
Fantastic. How many days, how many years have you been coaching already? Like,
Oh, yes. I've been doing this work for more than 20 years now, unfortunately, on one side. Fortunately, on the other side. Yeah. So I was doing, I started doing this early 2000s, actually, with small teams. And then these teams became successful and they asked me for projects. There were still projects in the early days. And then you don't remember maybe, but there were. And then projects became departments, and then departments became organizations.
and how many organizations have you been helping the last 20 years, roughly? Like,
Oh, how many organizations? A lot. I don't know. I don't know, maybe 50,
uh-huh.
right? Maybe 50
And
organizations or
I'm
so.
curious to know from these 50, what would be the rate of success on, because I can imagine you advise them, but then it's up to them to make the change, right? So what is the percentage of organizations that have been successful with what they wanted to achieve through the change, or partially successful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is I think this is a very hard question. Like it's a hard question for any type of change um, that you want to achieve. And let me, so there are two things I can say about that. One is you can change, let's say, and then start working in the new structure, but then maybe in the 2 years after that, everything is just back as it was before. This happens a lot, actually. And usually this happens because the leadership that started this moved, and other leadership came, and then they have another view on things, and then it changes back to usually what was before. This is happens a lot, and there are many reasons for that. I think one of the reasons is that the hierarchy is just more stable because, well, it's a hierarchy than a more networked organization. Networked organization is more fragile for people to impose hierarchy on them. And then you see, and if you're in hierarchy, it's very hard to change that. So I think that's one of the reasons. The change of management is also one of the reasons. And the other reason is it's just very hard to measure success. It's easy to measure success in sense of did we make more money, did we increase our market share, did our customer satisfaction increase, or employee satisfaction, whatever you think is important, do we release more frequently, and so on. Okay, did we have a more impact, whatever, however you may measure that. Those things can be measured, and maybe they have a relationship directly. But on the other hand, maybe it's just that the president of the United States made a tweet that impacted the market, and you don't know. See, it's a complicated world out there. So it could be true or not, and so on. And the last thing I want to say about that, uh, uh, why it's so hard. It's hard because if you do this transformation, then the end state is not static. It's not that you say, I do the transformation and then I'm in this new state and then I'm done. Well, well, no, that's not the end state. The end state is dynamic. So you're in this dynamic state all the time. So there is no end state, you see, because, well, things are changing. That's the state that you want to be in. So that makes it also hard to measure using more traditional ways of measuring that. But looking back and guessing from some, I revisited some of my customers before. I think maybe 10% would have significant benefit after I visited, some years after working with them. and 90% no. They had temporarily benefits, and they're back to most of what they were doing before.
And what would you say is the characteristic of the leaders who successfully made the change? What do you see in these people? You say, wow, now that in retrospective, I see why this leader has succeeded, or those leaders have succeeded with the change.
Oh, wow. So that's a very good question. It's a bit hard because there are many levels of leaders, like I work with people from the board, which are different than from board -1 or board -2. So it's different type of qualities you're referring to, you're asking here.
But there is always someone who call you, right? Someone who is, oh, let's bring Cesario in and let him help us with the change. So is this a relationship within the type of people who looking for you for your help and they succeed, or not?
So let's just forget about, usually senior management hires me, so board -1 people. Let's focus on them. So what I remember from people who actually got things done and working, these were people. One of the characteristic was, well, they were very interested in people.
Okay.
So they were very interested in people themselves, how they behaved, how they felt, and so on. They were really interested in their well-being. That's one thing that I can see. And the other one is that they actually felt and took ownership of this. They said, well, I'm not going to delegate this to Cesario. But I'm going to take ownership of this, and I'm going to, in some way, lead this, run this, right? Of course, I have people to help me. Maybe like they hired me, so I was helping them. Many others were helping them, but they took ownership. It was not, well, let's do it, and let's have a meeting every month and see how it's going. Now that I'm thinking back, so the people who did meetings every month, they didn't get anywhere. So I strongly discourage doing that. So they were aware of people, and they were actually involved in doing it because it was very important. They really believed that this change would contribute to their success. So if it's so important, so they work on it, right?
Absolutely.
So I think there could be many, many more, but for just the two that come to mind right now, two characteristics. Of course, they were very smart, but those basic stuff I will not mention here.
Yeah, at the end, change is done by people. Like, it's people in the organization who, at the end, decide if they want to change or not. And there are many ways where people cannot feel engaged in the change and then just comply with the process established, and then not really be interested in the change because they don't see the value and they don't see the benefit of it. So there is a big difference in people being engaged and making the change and just checking the boxes, right?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
What about Ilya? We didn't have the chance to have Ilya today here, but can you tell us a word about her? Because she co-authored the book with you, right?
She's not a she; it's a he.
Oh, sorry
That's
about
okay.
that.
So yeah, so yes, we wrote it together the last three and a half years or so, and he's a fellow LES trainer. He's a LES trainer also, and we know each other for, I don't know, 6-7 years or something for now already. And he does similar work like I do. He teaches courses, and he does lots of coaching also. Yeah, he likes Queen music.
What music do
Yeah,
you like?
so I'm sorry?
What music do you like?
Oh, I like like rock music.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix. I play the drums, so I play
Oh, cool.
lots of Iron Maiden and those kinds of
Look what they have
bands.
here. Do you remember the
Oh, right.
Stratocaster I
Oh,
told
it's a
you
real
about?
Fender.
It's a real Fender, yes.
Very cool. My son plays guitar a lot.
Uh huh.
He just bought a new one last week.
Okay.
He made a website. He's making a website for me, and of course he had vacation, school vacation. He made a website, and of course I had to pay for it. And he used the music, used the money to buy a new guitar.
But he did a website for music or for something else?
No, he made a website for me.
Ah, okay, for your personal website.
Yes,
Oh,
a personal website. Yeah.
oh, nice.
Using WordPress.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
Old
Pretty
school,
good.
old
I
school.
can show it to you.
Okay. Nice. That's fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your insights about change with us and sharing about the book. I will share the link to the book on Amazon here in the post.
Great.
And yeah, I encourage people to reach out to you if they have some questions about the trainings and the book, etc., etc.
Great. Thanks so much.